And we're back with more News Talk Saga 960. So very glad you could join us to start your work week right here with us on the Mark Petrona Show. Well, what's your gauge on where the economy is at? I mean, depending on who you talk to, it's either in pretty good shape or in terrible shape. If you talk to the government, they'll tell you that they're doing a great job. Nothing new there. But if you ask workers, what are they saying? Well, we know that there are job openings out there, but we also know that the inflation is high. And we also know that there is a slowdown in the number of people that certain sectors are bringing in, the tech sector, among others. But what about other important indicators? Well, BJ Dichter is going to be joining us, and his take is kind of a gut level view of where the economy is based on trucking shipments, based on the number of vehicles heading south with loads. And so we're going to bring him on the show to talk a little bit about that. He was mentioning to me that, in his view, we're about 6 months away from an economic crash. Welcome once again, BJ.
It's good to see you. How are you, Mark?
Excellent. Thank you. All right, talk about this. When did it dawn on you that something was wrong with the economy based on what you were seeing on the ground?
Fairly recently, at least over the past several weeks, it's been a little bit of a bumpy ride for the transport industry in general for a whole bunch of reasons. There was, interesting enough, during the Freedom Convoy, when I was in Ottawa being the spokesperson, there was somewhat of a bubble for the companies that were operating, and they couldn't handle the demand. And as people got back out of their homes and back to a regular life, since the cerveza sickness seems to have subsided, we could see that the economic indicators that there's been a boom, that people were spending money again, people had saved money during the period where either their jobs were furloughed or they had CERB payments or whatever it is. So people have never had so much money in savings, so they've now gone out to start to spend them. And I think we're at that point where the bubble has burst, because I've noticed in the past couple of weeks, crossing the border, what I bring across is commodities, essentially paper usually, and a few other different commodities. And this past week, I believe it was the past week or the week before, was the first time I arrived at the destination that I went to, which is a very, very, very large company in the United States. And there was half the number of trailers in the yard. I couldn't believe it. I've never seen yards and that's been happening numerous times. I know the number of loads, like last year, this time, even there was there wasn't enough drivers to handle the capacity. So I was getting asked daily, every day, can you go out? Can you go out? Can you go? They couldn't handle the volume. Well, that seems to have subsided now. And now there's a lot more days off during the month because there's just not the same number of orders being placed. And that's important because what I deal with are things that you will not see entering the market for another 6 months. There's a little bit of latency between when our products get to the United States, to their destination, and start their journey down the distribution channel from production to wholesale to retail and whatnot. And yeah, it is significantly less, in my opinion and my experience.
Meaning that at the end of the day, 6 months from now, you expect to see shortages in grocery stores? I mean, is that what the once the other shoe drops? Is it what does it look like? Does it look like walking
No,
into stores and seeing empty shelves?
No, I think what at least from my vantage point, manufacturers are anticipating a massive crash in demand. I don't deal with food per se, but on the manufacturing side, there's definitely a lag, which means they're already calculating in that we're going to have a very soft Christmas this year, that the economy is going to slow massively. There won't be the same number of people with disposable income to purchase your goods and services in general. And you can see that. You can see that in the lack of business and deliveries going across from Canada into the US and back, by the way. So one of the other indicators is usually in the transport sector, you'll see often, anybody who's in trucking will know this, that you try to double and triple up loads. So if you go to a client and they have, let's say, a third of a trailer, then you try to go to multiple stops to fill up that trailer before you bring it across the border, right? It's just more cost effective, more profitable. The jewelry industry, that's what we used to call a tweezer profit. It's that little profit you can squeeze out by merging loads together. And that's not happening. I mean, I brought a load back last week. It was some sort of furniture. I think it was TV furniture, if I'm not mistaken. And the trailer was 3/4 empty, and there were no loads to pair it up with to come back and cross the border. So that's usually another indicator that things are starting to really slow down.
So you take stuff from Canada to the United States, right? And back and
And
forth?
then back from the United States into Canada. Yeah, like anybody in the trucking business, you don't
Is
go just one way. You got to be
yeah.
profitable both directions.
Is there a difference between what the load size is going south versus north? I mean, is there a greater demand, say, for Canadian products in the United States, or what, or is there no difference at all there?
I think it's just slowed in general in both directions.
Okay.
At least that's what I'm seeing.
Yeah, and are the mandates having an impact? Is the ArriveCan app an issue as far as the drivers are concerned?
Well, I'm going to say this, but hopefully I'm not going to get people in trouble. It seems to be even our civil service is fed up with this illegitimate government because they're not checking ArriveCan. They haven't checked my ArriveCan in, I don't know, a month. And because I believe it's up to the discretion of the officer, and 90% of truckers are just fed up with this nonsense. So usually just give your passport, your paperwork, you get through, and then they're not even checking it anymore.
Is it possible that they recognize you? I mean, they probably have seen you multiple times. Yeah, he's all right. I mean, if I tried it, for instance, maybe it would be a different story. I don't know, because I haven't crossed.
Yeah, it could be. It could very well be. But the point is, usually the way it works is you have to activate the ArriveCan. At least it puts it on. That's what I explained on Tucker Carlson. When the ArriveCan app is active on your phone, then when you cross the border, it pops up. I haven't even turned on the ArriveCan app in, I don't know, maybe a month. And yeah, it could be, and I'm in their system already, and they know I'm vaccinated and whatever. I don't know, but they don't seem to. And I'd asked some other truckers, have they had to deal with it as well? And they all tell me, no, I haven't had to touch it in months.
Is it possible that some truckers might not get much work in the days ahead based on what you're telling me? I mean, if the loads are, half what they should be, what they've been in the past, isn't it possible that people in the trucking industry might end up not working much?
Well, I'm not so I don't know that truckers necessarily have to worry, because there was always, for the past several years, there's been a shortage of truckers. And I think at its maximum, it was either 22 or 33,000 drivers that there was a shortage of. And so irrespective of a slowdown in the economy, there's still that gap of a lack of drivers. And what exacerbated it, by the way, is when Doug Ford's government brought in new regulations to make it even more difficult to become a trucker. So when I got my license several years ago, I got it just before the rules changed. That's why I got it at that time, because idea maybe we were going to go into it, maybe we weren't. And now, as opposed to then you get on the job experience was the idea.
For a second. Yeah, go ahead, please continue.
And yeah, so in the past, where it was, I don't remember what it was something like 20 hours of on the job road experience, like testing experience, and you get your exam, and then you get on the job experience. Well, now it's something like, somebody told me it's something like 200 hours, and it costs about $10,000-$12,000 to get your trucking license with some schools, as opposed to the $2,000 that it was when I did it. And again, we can thank Doug Ford for implementing that rule, making it more difficult to become a trucker.
Let's hear this guy, a guy by the name of Andrew Johns, talking about the ArriveCan app.
Okay.
All right. Well, here I am. Just left leaving Vancouver International Airport. There's the taxis over there. I didn't fill out my ArriveCan app. I didn't even actually have it on my phone. I deleted it a couple of months ago, and no one asked for it. So clearly, you can go through customs without this extra bureaucracy. So I think the best thing that Trudeau can do is just get rid of the damn ArriveCAN app for everybody. It's just an extra waste of time.
Yeah.
And clearly you don't need it because, look, I got out of the airport and all I needed was my passport.
Well, are we seeing a rebellion here amongst those whose job it is to check the ArriveCAN app? I mean, if you're not being checked, this guy's going through Vancouver Airport, he's not being checked. Isn't it possible that people on the ground, Benjamin, are just saying, you know what, I've had it with this thing. I'm not going to bother.
I think that's part of it. And I also think people are, they don't realize how weak the Trudeau government is at this point. Weak even within his own party. As somebody explained to me recently, somebody who had long ties to the Liberal Party, said the Liberal Party anymore. There's Justin Trudeau and a team of about 20 people that run it like a cult out of PMO. And then everybody else is just ignored. And either people are just sitting on their hands and just following orders, or they're just waiting for the opportunity and the time to knife blackface in the heart and get rid of him politically, because he's completely legitimate. And even the civil service, who are normally very pro-liberal, which is fine. Okay, fine. They lean towards the liberal side. Even they seem to be just completely disillusioned and tired of it, because he's become a global embarrassment. Like, what an embarrassment Canada has become on the world stage because of blackface and his draconian methods to turn Canada into a banana republic with how he treated us in Ottawa and had law enforcement beat and abuse and arrest middle class working Canadians, small business owners. That's who was protesting with us in Ottawa. It's shameful and it's disgusting, and he's quite pathetic. And I think everybody, even the civil service, know it, and they just want to move on beyond the blackface years, which is why I mentioned in my Substack, bjdichter.substack.com, my last article was about why we're going to be in election before the end of the year.
I got to talk to you about that as well. But the Americans aren't happy about this ArriveCAN app either, Benjamin. Here's a retweet by Ezra, and it's of a news story out of the U.S. This is Elise Stefanik, who's a congresswoman, saying, we've got to get rid of this thing. You've got to get rid of this thing, Canada. Let's listen.
Congresswoman Elise Stefanik is calling for an end to a Canadian travel restriction. The ArriveCAN app is used by the Canadian government to ensure the vaccination status of people traveling to Canada. Canadian media reports point to data and compliance issues, and Stefanik calls the app glitchy and confusing. She says it has disrupted cross-border travel and damaged tourism and commerce. The app requires travelers to download it and get pre-approval for the cross-border trips. A number of Canadian chambers of commerce and others are also asking the Canadian government to end the mandatory use of the app.
What are you hearing in terms of U.S. drivers? Are they just flat out saying, I'm not going up there?
You know what's interesting, at least in my capacity, I don't meet a lot of U.S. drivers who come into Canada. I do meet a lot of Canadian drivers down there, and I meet a lot of U.S. drivers who drive within the U.S. I think what I find amongst American drivers I've gotten to know, they have just a preference to not deal with the bureaucracy of the Canadian border. And because of that, they prefer to focus on the US. Well, that has just become exacerbated over the past couple of years. So drivers who previously weren't, once they saw everything that was going on with the cerveza sickness restrictions and ultimately the app and paperwork, they're just like, you know what, the bureaucracy was stupid before. Now it's just unbearable. So you guys can enjoy your Stalinist Canada. We're going to stick to America first. And that's why a lot of the drivers I know from the South, they'll go up to what we call the upper right corner of the United States and then back to the South, sort of thing, right?
Benjamin Dichter joining us from Toronto. He was, of course, a communications expert with the convoy. He was an organizer. And of course, that continues to make news. We are hearing reports that some of the charges against some of those who participated, that they are being dropped for lack of evidence. But we love to talk about the media coverage, including by some of the reporters who were among the favorites, and I use that term sarcastically, of course, including Rachel Gilmore of Global News. Her latest expose, Benjamin, is reposting a picture of Pierre Poilievre shaking hands with Jeremy Mackenzie, founder of
Oh
Diagonal.
God,
And
that's
so
my
she said,
mascot.
just posted a picture of this telegram of him shaking hands with Pierre Poilievre. It's unclear when this photo was from, but it looks like it's from one of Pierre Poilievre's campaign meet and greets. And there he is. So the picture, I think, is carefully cropped to avoid showing you all the other people around. Obviously, he's not going to have a tete-a-tete with this individual. I mean, how can you be expected to know everybody who sticks their hand out and saying, you know, I like what you're saying and I like you and all this other kind of stuff? But here it is. They're trying to paint him as a sympathizer of Diagolon, which is considered by some to be an extremist group. But this Rachel Diagolon has quite a reputation amongst convoy organizers, doesn't she?
Yeah, so a couple of things there. By the way, did you notice that on that same page, what was trending at the same time was blackface, which I think is hysterical. That individual is he's my mascot. He's been obsessed with me for years. He's, how do we describe him? His view of Jews makes Mel Gibson look like a rabbi. So that's I think he's hysterical.
Well, wait a minute. I mean, the Liberal Party of Canada has no love for Jewish people. We've seen that by some of the people they're paying to supposedly be anti-racist experts and consultants.
Oh yeah, well, that hold on, that's the next thing. But this guy is he's a PPC loyalist, so he's part of the group of the PPC people who took that party's reputation and very quickly flushed it down the toilet with their big mouth because they say stupid things and bring down everybody around them. So I guess he's transferring that over to Pierre Poilievre, and the mainstream media is trying to enact that, but it's hysterical and it's comical.
They're embarrassing themselves.
Oh, and this terrorist group that they have, Diagolon, it's actually kind of funny because it's a troll. It's not a real group. It's not a real organization, but they're too stupid to realize that the government is looking for a boogeyman in any corner and anybody to blame. And I think it's a little bit irresponsible what we're doing. Well, what can you do? You know what? They do them, I do me, and we all move on, right?
Let's watch a little bit of this video by somebody whom you work with, Wyatt, over at the National Telegraph. And he exposes some of the quote-unquote shabby reporting by this individual, Rachel Gilmore. Let's listen to this video.
The tactic that Rachel Gilmore uses is she finds a couple bad people, a couple bad organizations, or a bad country like Russia, tries to generally kind of crowd them into the same area, whether or not other people have done anything wrong or not, and then uses the fact that she's taking shots nearby Jeremy Mackenzie or something like that as justification that she hits people like Pierre Poilievre, James Top, or the Freedom Convoy. She can just mow down an entire crowd of people in this metaphor, and it's all okay because, hey, at least she got her guy. It's an incredibly unethical way of working, but this demonstrates how bad the legacy media has become in Canada. And she's the sloppiest kind of purveyor of these tactics, which honestly I think just kind of goes to show that the legacy media does not care about quality. I also previously mentioned that Rachel Gilmore makes TikTok videos for Global News, and I'm kind of just doing this because I find it funny. It's hilarious the amount of money that the legacy media has, whether from their own profits or from subsidies from the federal government, and they produce this low effort, low quality, low information content. And then they have the gall to look at the independent media and act as if somehow we're really not up to snuff. So just look at this video right here where she really jams in a lot of projection, a lot of just flat out falsehoods under the guise that she's informing young Canadians on TikTok.
Some Canadian politicians have been getting closer with the far right, and experts are getting concerned.
Yeah, the experts that Gilmore's referring to is people from the Anti-Hate Network who were caught spreading fake screenshots purporting to show that Freedom Convoy supporters in Toronto were handing out anti-Semitic flyers.
Here's what you need to know. In
Oh,
recent years, politicians from around the world have toyed with far-right ideas, from
Oh my
spreading
gosh.
unfounded conspiracy theories about the World Economic Forum to amplifying populist ideas from the fringes of society.
She's a lunatic.
Oh
She
my
needs a street
gosh.
jacket.
Oh no, people are making up conspiracy theories about
Wow.
the World Economic Forum. Would any of these conspiracy theories have anything to do with the things that they publish on their own website or the things that they say at their own conferences? Like, can she
Good
point
point.
to one WEF conspiracy?
I mean, the Build Back
isn't
Better
true?
stuff
Like,
is coming
I
out of
disagree with people when
Justin
they say
Trudeau's
that
mouth,
someone
for
like
crying
Justin
out
Trudeau is
loud.
a literal
No,
puppet
that
of
is
the
just
WEF,
conspiracy
but the whole
theory.
point is
That's
he's
just conspiracy theory, even though
ideologically
that comes out of their own
captured by them, or at
mouths.
least promotes a lot of their crazy ideas. She doesn't name one, and then she moves on like, "Oh my goodness, people are using populist ideas from the fringes of society." Like, I agree, there's fringe people out there that I don't like. But she
Wyatt
doesn't
is
name
on
one because
fire.
She's just trying to be vague,
Yeah.
as if every single thing that conservatives say these days might be influenced by someone from the populist fringe.
That's great. But I like the way you guys are sharpening your attacks on some of the legacy media types. Good for you. I mean, is it having any impact? Or any of them, I don't know, embarrassed or even responding?
Well, I know that their platform, the National Telegraph, is read by just about everybody on Parliament Hill. They've told me some of the metrics in terms of the views that they get. They're in the millions. A lot of traction
I think you're frozen.
because they're quite succinct.
All right. Before we lose your audio, why don't we wrap it up, Benjamin? Thank you, because I can
All
see
right.
that the connection is. Thank you. I appreciate. Thanks for coming on the show. Sorry
All
to
right.
wrap it up, but I
All
got
right,
you know.
we'll talk to you soon, man.
Yeah. Thank you, Benjamin. BJ Dichter.
All
And that's
I'll see you soon.
all right. Let's take a break. Back with more on News Talk Saga 960 and the Mark Petroni Show after this.